So what we covered today was, scenario-based learning, branching simulations, immersive learning, all that sort of thing.
Mm.
Some of the key points were, first of all, keep it simple. It's not about creating really complex branching and scenarios and decisions. It's about, keeping it really simple and focusing on, what are people doing that's not right? What are people doing or what people should be doing? And somewhere in between.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you what I wrote down?
Yes.
And you can sort of see if I got you right as well.
Yeah.
So the first thing I wrote was make sure that you build an emotional connection and that people
Mm.
understand consequences. So it shouldn't be like fact based. There should be an emotional component to it
Yeah.
because you want behavior change.
Yeah. So really with the behavioral scenarios or simulations, what you want to do, it's not about, like I was calling it, the quiz show answers where it's
Mm.
blatantly A and blatantly B, or um, just a rhyming off a definition. Just because I know what empathy is doesn't mean I'm going to use it in the right situation. It's
Yeah.
really about, you know, um, building that connection, putting the learner in a certain situation with
Mm.
either they're familiar with, they're completely different. Um, and, what emotional connection can they make that will drive their behavior to change or even maintain the course,
Mm.
if it's the right behavior, and that you give them different decisions to take. If they are rude to a client or a customer, what happens? If they're overly nice and overpromise, what'll happen?
Mm.
Or if they do the right behavior, what'll happen? And having that action, each action has a consequence, rather than saying, correct, you got the answer right, tick, you've got,
Yeah. Two
move
points.
on.
Here's a badge.
Yes, here's a badge. Everyone gets a badge,
Yeah.
and you got 80% and the company's happy because everyone has passed. Really,
Yeah.
in fact, it should be about, as I called it, the productive failure, allowing people to go in multiple times,
Mm.
and allowing them to say, actually, do you know what? See what happens when you don't do the right thing. See what
Yeah.
happens when you do the right thing. See what happens when you do both,
Mm.
or go in blind. I think a lot of the times organizations are too focused on, or even the learners, like, I must get it right, I must get it right, and only focus on getting things right, but not thinking of, well, what's the consequence if I don't do something right?
Yeah.
And then they're afraid to make a mistake, and then they don't learn how to recover from it either, because we all get into situations where in real life, where sometimes we do make the wrong decision,
Yeah. We mess up.
and and how do you recover from it? Or if you
Mm.
overpromise and you realize, oh, I shouldn't have said that,
Yeah.
how can you kind of divert yourself back? um yeah, I think that's really crucial,
Yeah.
and
And
just
you
keep it
also,
simple.
yeah, you also said something really interesting about like it's not just short-term consequences, but also long-term
Mm.
consequences.
Yeah.
So I think if you're new to like scenario-based training or behavioral training,
Mm.
you might focus solely on short-term consequences, but you
Yeah.
could use it as well to highlight long-term consequences or both.
Both, yeah. Generally in the feedback, I'll try and give both,
Mm.
or direct it down down the path. Say, for instance, I tend to go on with empathy because it's so
Mm.
embedded in customer service, and across leadership as well. That if if your customer is happy, or if your client is happy, or your team is happy, short term, yeah, that's great. But actually, wouldn't it be nice to say that because you helped out Mary or John or Bob, they got a bit more confidence, and
Mm.
they were able to succeed, and you know they did really well, and they got the promotion they wanted and thanked you, and because of that your manager like loved your leadership skills and you got promoted. I
Mm.
think we tend to forget about that, and when we design assessments around specifically soft skills, I tend to focus on, is we tend to look at the short term, or congratulations, you got the right, you have
Mm.
used empathy, move on to next. But we don't realize why do we have to do it? What's in it for
Mm.
me? What's in it,
Yeah.
for the company? What's in it for my team? What's in it for my manager? We tend to just forget about that and go, okay, yeah, I got the question right, and we don't think about it. Like, we are
Mm.
people that are built towards stories. It's only if you
Yeah.
think about how story, and that's what really what we're doing in behavioral simulations and scenario based learning, is telling a story. is, for nearly 10,000 years, that's how we learned. And like, I'm Irish,
Yeah.
we're full of stories. We forget that.
Yeah. And
And
we were
you
talking
give
about
the connection.
inspiration, right? Because not all of us are natural storytellers.
Oh yeah.
And so if you want to get into like scenario-based training, behavioral simulations, there is an aspect of storytelling that has to be there for it to work.
Yes. Yeah.
So you talked about like getting inspiration from like TV shows and movies.
Yeah, just looking at things from a different lens. Now, this worked for me. It mightn't work. I am not a storyteller. I'm probably the worst storyteller. To my other half, you'd be like, "Here, just get on with it." I found, just looking at things from a different lens. I kind of use the analogy of watching The Office. I was kind of, because I was doing stuff based in an office, it was just like picking up on those little things, or even watching a film, and just like really good scenes, really good aspects of it there. Or if you're watching your friends interact, or if you're, kind of love a bit of people watching too, watching people, and seeing how they interact, and, leveraging the assets within the organization as well. If possible, your client, or if you're working in the organization, can you sit in and observe what's going on? I know there's a lot of biases there, that people being observed don't tend to follow the right behavior, or tend to follow the right behaviors. Do you have recordings? Do you, like with customer service, a lot of the time, so there'll be, this
Just
is for
ask
trading
people, like,
purposes.
what's your job like? What's your life like?
Yeah, and that's it.
Because people
Asking.
like telling you about their life if you ask them, like if you're actually listening, like
Yeah,
genuinely care, they don't mind telling you about mistakes they've made, embarrassing stories, worst work day of their life. Like they'll tell
yeah.
you if you care.
That's it. And just saying, what was that Swedish word?
Fika.
Yeah, having one of those with just
Yeah.
a quick coffee break, and just say, look, I'm designing this. I don't know where to start. I talked about, that as instructional designers, we're expected, or I know myself, like I must know everything. We can't know everything. We just happen to translate. We're translators. So really, just talking to the people that are doing it, that are engaging it, doing it right, doing it wrong, and just saying, look, can I have a chat with you? And just tell me, or this is where my head is at, as you brainstorm things out, and reach out to them and say, look, does this happen? Is this really right? And building that kind of connection and partnership, but obviously being cognizant of their time as well. They still have their day-to-day job to do as well.
Yeah. And another thing I wrote down here was about like researching the company, the culture, the values, to sort of bake that in to everything. Like it doesn't have to be blatantly everywhere, but you do have to sort of affirm what the company wants, what kind of values they have, etc.
Yeah, I
but
think
we
we've
also
all
talked
taken
about
the.
like, what if it's not? What if what they say they are and what they are not the same thing? Because it won't resonate with the employees, right? If you're like, this is what we are, and they're like, no, we're this.
I think we've all taken that training, or watched those little videos, and you're like, that's so not me, and you automatically switch off. If you don't resonate with anything, be it training or marketing, you're just like, next. I admit I'm the worst learner. I'd be like, yeah, skip that, fast forward. So if it is kind of, sometimes you throw a blanket and kind of catch all, and throw out a net, you might catch a couple of fish. You're really not going to embed anything. You're actually probably going to more distract, because you're going to go, well, I can't connect with this at all. I can't, so my behavior won't change because what you're saying is completely false. So there's a bit of change management there as well, and things. But if it is something where you're trying to do a catch-all, sometimes, doing something so out there might be a better idea. Like I was saying about that book I'm reading, is, they talk about, an alien landing. So again, back to empathy. If you have the alien landing, and, you have to introduce them to like emotional behaviors, and, what is, being nice, what is, active listening, they don't know, because, they're an alien down from space. Sometimes that can resonate a bit easier. So,
Yeah, I feel
because
like
it's
it's
so out
either
there.
or. Either it's super relatable, this is exactly my life,
Yeah.
or it's like completely taken out of context into something absolutely different.
Mm.
And it's engaging because it's so crazy, right? It's aliens, or it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
you're,
Or it could be
like
just even
going for an
someone.
underground expedition.
Mm. Yeah, or it could be just someone kind of new to the organization, or just like you're in the shop. Sometimes, like if we go again, if I go back to the customer service, rather than being within, if you're designing and trading for customer service for your organization, sometimes
Mm.
actually take it away from the organization and just say you're going to a shop, and someone
Yeah,
is
so in
helping
the
you out,
customer's shoes rather than, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and that
absolutely. I
could
think,
work as well.
yeah. And I think the thing I would like that we touch upon before we end this recording with summary is that it has to be like real choices. It has to be something you have to
Yes,
think about. It has to be hard, right? It can't
yes.
be obvious, like what is the correct thing to do.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah,
it has to be, because you won't learn unless it's hard,
yeah,
unless you actually have to think about it, unless you have to rack your brain and be like, okay, I'm not this, yeah, this, that. And so there
mm.
can't be like an obvious answer, because that's a fact question.
Yeah. And it has to be something as well where you know there's that gray area as well,
Mm,
and to get them thinking, but allowing them to get the wrong answer.
yeah.
We do want them to think about, okay, if I do this, what's the consequence, and so forth,
Mm,
within a scenario. But you also want them to think, well, you know, allow them to make the wrong decision. I think it
okay.
is really important,
Yeah.
because we are trying to change behavior, and behavior doesn't change overnight, and it
Yeah.
doesn't change because
And I
of
mean,
taking one e-learning, as much as we'd love, or one sim or
yeah.
whatever. But
And there could be several right answers as well, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
or like, this is not bad. It could be a little better, but it's not bad.
yeah. That's like the
Like,
good, the bad,
you
and the
want to,
ugly.
you could take it up a notch by doing this, or like,
Yeah,
yeah, this is really good, or like, yeah, this might not fly, to like, oh
yeah,
my god, this is a catastrophe. Like,
yeah, yeah. And that's really where you kind of you need your SME input as well, to
yeah.
tell you about that. What the good looks like, and what good doesn't look like,
Mm,
um, and really just kind of bringing it down to really just the choices and
mm,
consequences, because
yeah.
that's what makes, like, any behavior that we change, even outside of learning. Well, we're all learning, but outside of
Mm,
an e-learning, is we recognize the consequences, and sometimes we don't make those right decisions, and we'd have the wrong consequence, and things don't work out, and we build that emotion into it, and saying that's okay, you've got it
mm,
wrong. Let's go back, why not try it again, or let's see, how can you fix it,
yeah.
kind of going off, kind of down a side alley, and just saying, well, because you overpromised your customer, now they're expecting, and they're working from home to try and get waiting for you to come and check everything's all right and whatnot, and you're
Yeah.
not there. How do you bring it back? And because just because you made one bad decision doesn't mean your life has gone off in one tangent. And the scenario should be the same way. That
Yeah, you should be able to save the situation at some
Yeah,
point. Yeah.
yeah. But again, keeping it simple, because, like I said, when I was first designing scenarios, way back when, I was kind of like doing these really mad branching things, and it was like,
Yeah.
just
No.
kind of keeping
Especially
it
if you're
simple.
new to it, keep it really simple.
Yeah, and I
and
think as
and
well,
do
just
iterations, so you keep like testing it with other people. We have to stop this recording now,
yeah,
but if you're watching this and you feel like you missed out and you wish you'd have joined, well, you're in luck, because Ciara's coming back in a couple of weeks to show us some examples of some um, scenarios she has created, sort of behavior simulations. So go to mygldc.com, sign up, and subscribe. Make sure you join our Wednesday meetups, and we'll see you there. Right. Thank you, Ciara.
no problem. Thanks a million for having me.